Interested in bedding sets? Here is one for you from Annie Marie. Lovely. I'm going to open this package for you, and trust me, you're going to love everything in this package. So this is a beautiful bedding set. It's more like a plain and pattern kind of design. It comes with 4 pillowcases, and it also comes with a bed sheet. It's actually a flat sheet, okay? It's not fitted and it doesn't have elastics on it, and it also comes with a beautiful comforter. You can call it a quilt. I didn't cut up the blocks, but I squared it out. You can see the sewing, so I'm going to teach you everything. Hey lovelies, this is Annie with Annie Marie. If you're new here, you're welcome. Do well to subscribe, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. So today I'm going to be showing you how to sew a bedding set, okay, which will consist of 4 pillowcases, 1 bed sheet, and a comforter. All right, the fabrics I'm showing you right now are for the pillowcases and the bed sheet. Okay, I'm going to be showing you 2 pillowcases on camera and the rest off camera. So this part is going to be one side of the comforter, and the pattern fabric is going to be the other side of the comforter, which is like a reversible comforter. Okay, every measurement is going to be in the description. So we have the polyfiber, and the polyfiber is going to be used to sew the comforter. So this is going to be a step-by-step tutorial. I'm going to be using my wonder clip, which you know I always use for things like this to make everything ready. So here is the fabric. We have the patterned fabric with the right side facing the right side of the plain fabric, and then the polyfiber is at the bottom. So we have 3 layers of fabrics together. I'm going to sew them along the edges with 1/4 inch seam, but you can use 1/2 inch if that is what you want. Okay, I'll be turning it inside out. Okay, so while sewing it, I'm going to leave a small space on one of the sides. All right, so I'm going to be mindful of that. It can be just 3 inches or thereabout. So you know I love starting to sew with my needle, and the fabric is very important. I'll do my back stitching, make sure that everything is well set, and I'm going to be maintaining a 1/4 inch seam allowance like I said, but you can do 1/2 inch. All right, so while sewing, I will make sure that I get the 3 layers together. This is very important. You make sure that your needle and your thread penetrates and gets the 3 layers. Remember what I told you earlier? It's going to be the patterned fabric, right side facing the right side of the plain material, and then the polyfiber at the bottom. So I'm getting to the end, and once I get here, all I have to do is to leave my needle inside the fabric. I'll raise my presser foot and I will turn the fabric around. This is my favorite way and the best way to do a continuous stitching while sewing anything. Okay, so I'm going to continue stitching down, and this is what I'm going to do till I finish sewing all the edges. Don't forget, we're going to leave like 3 inches opening where we're going to turn this inside out to complete our stitching. Okay, so I've gotten to that point and my opening is right here. So what I'm going to do is to get to the other point, all right, the corner that is opposite to this particular space, in this corner. All right, I'm going to put my hand inside and pull it towards this opening gently. Remember, we have stitches here, okay, and we don't want to snap open our stitches. Okay, so I'm going to just get to the other corner that is opposite this part, okay, and be pulling it out. Right, so I'm going to dip my hand inside to reach that other corner opposite to this side. All right, and I'll start pulling it up gently. Okay, so I'm going to like hurry up here so that I won't take most of your time, and you will see how it will work. Okay, it works like a magic. You say, oh my god, I mean, how come this is looking this way? But trust me, once you finish pulling it out, you try to, you know, bring out the edges, make sure everything comes out. It's going to look a little bit floppy, you know, like everything is not in place. It's going to look like this. Okay, but you can see it's perfect. So we're going to sew close this opening. All right, and when we finish sewing it, just try to pull out all the corners. You can see the pattern side is there, and then the plain side is there. So it's already coming together. So we'll sew the edge now, and then we'll get to the next step. Okay, let's just sew this opening closed. You will still use 1/4 inch seam allowance to do that. If you're using 1/2 inch, you can do that also. Okay, so now I've finished closing my opening, and the next thing to do is to give it a binding effect. All right, so I'm going to be using 1 inch to sew all round the comforter. Now some people can do 1.5 inches, but I love 1 inch. It just gives me what I need. Okay, this just gives it a binding effect. Now some people will use a totally different fabric to do this binding, but this is my favorite way of sewing comforters, even quilts. Okay, even if I'm doing quilt blogs, I love doing it this way. It just gives it this well put together, like everything just uniform. All right, so I'm just sewing down the 1 inch all round. Now if you cannot maintain a straight line, and maybe your sewing machine doesn't have the markings on your needle plates, you can actually use a seam guide. Okay, the industrial sewing machines have that, domestic sewing machines have that. Okay, you really need to maintain the same seam allowance. You need to maintain the same measurement all round the edge of the comforter. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. Once I get to like 1 inch towards the end, I will leave my needle inside the fabric, and I'm going to raise my presser foot, swing it around, and continue sewing. Okay, this works for every kind of stitching. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing this until I get to the end, and then we'll get to the next step. I mean, you're getting something, right? This is very easy, but this work is bulky. All right, so you really need to get a new needle and make sure you have a good polyester sewing thread. So now I'm gotten to the end. All right, and I'm raising my needle, I'm bringing it out, and the next step is a very simple one. Okay, to some people it might be tasking, but trust me, if you enjoy sewing, if you enjoy quilting or making beddings, it won't be a big deal for you. Now we're going to be using our Telos chalk to mark out some squares on this fabric. Okay, you can actually use 10 inches, you can use 8 inches, depending on how you want your squares to be. I don't like my squares to be very tiny, and I don't like them very big, just medium sizes. Okay, so we're going to be use the Telos chalk to mark out long lines. Okay, lengthwise and widthwise. Okay, length and then by width also. So I'm going to use the chalk with ruler to mark it out, and I will show you how it looks. Okay, so let me do that off camera. Just make sure that you use a very good ruler and you maintain a straight line. Okay, why you're doing that is because you're going to sew along that line. But if you can maintain a straight line without using a Telos markings and a Telos chalk, no problem. Okay, you can do that, but I love doing this because I need it to be as straight as possible. So now I've done it. You can see the blue chalk. Another thing is you're going to use a chalk that the color does not match the color of your fabric, so that you can see what you're doing. Okay, don't worry, it's not going to stain your fabric. I mean, everybody that uses Telos chalk knows that these things always clean off. All right, so I'm going to start sewing down that line. All right, I used 10 inches squares, and just use the measurement that works for you. It can be tiny squares if that is what you want, but I love medium sizes. So I'm sewing down the line gently, making sure that I'm pulling the 3 layers. Remember, this is thick. Okay, this is not like your 2 cotton fabrics you're sewing together. Poly fiber is thick. You need to be pulling all 3 layers together. Working foot actually works for this kind of sewing, but you can use your normal sewing machine to do it. Okay, all you have to do is to make sure that you pull everything together. I know that some people feel that the feed dog doesn't need assistance, but seriously, you need to you really need to put in some work here. So I'll continue sewing down, and after this I will go widthwise also. I'm still going to use my Telos chalk to measure it by the side. And this is it. Okay, so I've marked it, and I'll start sewing down this part. Now another thing you have to know is your sewing machine needs to have that neck space, because we're going to be doing some foldings here. So what I like doing is I'll start from one side, I will sew like 3 squares, and then I'll turn it and start from another side also. You can see I'm folding it here, because as you continue sewing these straight lines, the bulk will be coming out. All right, and if your sewing machine doesn't have enough space, it's really going to be tedious, trust me. Okay, so what I do is I will sew some lines this side, bring it out, turn it to the other side, and continue. That's how I try to manage the bulk of the comforter, but the end result is always beautiful. Okay, you know, that's just it. When you're undertaking any project, you just look forward to the end result, provided it comes out great. Okay, it's just worth it. Okay, so this is me trying to do this. Remember, if you're sewing, you will end your sewing on the stitch. You don't get to the edge. Okay, you don't go over the binding. Remember, we did a 1 inch a binding around the comforter, so you end it where your stitch ended, not at the edge. Okay, now that I'm through, you can see how it's looking on both sides. Okay, so this is the pattern side, and then of course the plain fabric side is also looking amazing. So I'm almost done with this, and when we're done with this, we'll go to the next step, which is to sew the pillowcases. Okay, this is really coming out great. I love what I'm saying. Like I told you, every measurement used for this tutorial is in the description, all right, so that you can follow along easily. There we have it. This looks great. This really looks good, and I just love reversible comforters. I love, you know, using two fabrics in one. It makes it beautiful. You can use this side for like a week, and then you turn the other side for another week. You know, you don't wash comforters like that. You know, it's not something you wash on weekly basis. So now let's go over to sewing our pillowcase. Now here we're going to be sewing this pillowcase using the burrito method. Okay, and it's going to be a plain and pattern kind of pillowcase. So here I have the part that is going to be the edge. Okay, it's going to be the opening of the pillowcase, and I have the pattern side. So I'm going to use the width, and it's going to be right side facing the wrong side of the pattern. The yellow fabric is right sides facing the wrong side of the pattern fabric, and I'm going to fold the pattern fabric in between until it gets to the point that I can see the other end of the yellow. Okay, you can see what I'm doing, and then I'm going to bring it up and match it to the edge. So the pattern fabric is going to be in between the yellow. You can see what I'm doing, and then I'm going to use my clip to hold it down and sew it down. Okay, so we're making a sandwich here. Okay, this is what we call the burrito method. Now, if you've watched my scrunchie video, you will notice that I use this method in making my scrunchies. It's actually the best technique ever, you know, for sewing scrunchies. You can also do that for pillowcases. So I'm trying to get my small clips, because the big ones they're just like way too big for this. Okay, this is just cotton fabric. So I'm going to use my clips now to hold the edges so that I can sew the 3 layers very well. Make sure that your edges are okay, and then of course I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew down. You can use 1/2 inch also, it depends on you. All right, but I love using 1/4 inch seam allowance for, you know, this kind of project. So I'm going to make sure that my needle is inside my fabric. I always start sewing with my needle inside my fabric. Then I'm going to do my back stitching, and, you know, to secure my stitches, and then I just sew down using my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so while sewing, make sure that all the 3 layers are well aligned. Okay, that you're catching everything, because sometimes the middle fabric might slip inside and you won't even notice it until you're done sewing. It's really annoying. Okay, it's tiring trying to start all over. So while sewing, make sure that you're pushing everything together. That's why you have to use a clip, or of course you can use pins, but I hardly use pins, you know, while sewing, unless it is absolutely necessary. So this is me securing my stitch, and then we're done. Now the next step is to pull it out. Okay, just like opening your sandwich, and then you're trying to bring out the sausage and all whatnot inside it, because you just want to eat the sausage alone. Okay, so we're going to pull it out gently. Remember, this is stitched together. Okay, you have to pull it out gently in order not to open up your stitches or snap the stitches. but trust me, it's very easy to do. Okay, so I'll pull it out and then you see the magic. I love burrito methods. Okay, when it comes to things like this, you will see that the opening of our pillowcase is already done and dusted, like we're through with it. Okay, and it's giving the plain and pattern kind of effect. This is when you will now iron it out to make sure it looks beautiful and smooth. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to do the same thing on the other end of the fabric. Why I'm doing this twice, this step can actually be once if my pattern supports it, but because this thing written on this fabric, it has to go the same way that the bedsheet will go. It has to go the same way the comforter goes, the writing. Okay, that's why I'm sewing this, you know, twice. If it's all these multi-directional pattern fabrics, there is another way to sew this, and this, you know, just adding this edge will just be once. Okay, I'm not going to repeat this process again. I think I will show you in another video what I mean. All right, so we'll repeat the same steps. So now that I'm through, you can see what I have here, and now we're going to be sewing it with French seams. This is my best technique for sewing pillowcases. I love it. So instead of using my overlocker to just, you know, turn it right sides facing each other and just overlock and all whatnot, I use French seams. French seams makes your pillowcases to look beautiful inside out. Like sometimes if it's reversible fabrics, you know, all these kind of fabrics that are really plain fabrics, for instance, you can actually use it either ways, and people might feel, oh, you know, it's just designs. So now I'm going to do this wrong sides facing each other and sew it, and then I'll turn it inside out and still sew it again with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Remember what I said, wrong sides facing each other. You know, normally if you want to sew something, you will sew it right sides facing each other, but in this case it's wrong sides facing each other. Okay, your right side is going to be up, it's going to be facing you. Okay, so I'm going to be using my 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew down both sides, and when I'm done sewing down both sides, we'll get to the next step. Okay, so here it is. I know what you're thinking. What are we going to do again? What we're going to do again is to trim off the excess. Okay, you need to trim down this excess because when we turn it inside out, you will still sew down the sides using 1/4 inch seam allowance also. Okay, so we need to trim off this excess and make it as close to the stitch as possible, but please do not cut your stitches. Do not cut your stitches because, you know, you will just have to start all over again. All right, so once I'm done trimming the seam like so, we'll just bring out these edges. Okay, make sure that everything is smooth and good. You can iron this down. Okay, this is the part where you need to iron, and hey, I cannot overemphasize it, it's always beautiful to iron as you sew. It makes your project look beautiful. So you can see I've trimmed it down now, and I will turn it inside out and sew down the sides. All right, so I'm going to sew down the sides using 1/4 inch seam allowance. Like I said, you can use 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to use my clips to hold them down if I can, but it's not really close to me right now, so I'm going to do the needful. I'm going to be using my hands to press it down to make sure that the edges are smooth enough. Okay, so I'm using my 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew down the edges, and once I'm done sewing down both sides, we're through. We are through. We have our pillowcase. Okay, all we have to do is to turn it inside out again, and you will see the magic. Okay, I love using French seams. I really love using French seams for this kind of project. So look at what I'm saying. You can see it right. Ordinarily this would have been your overlock stitches, right? But look at this French seam looking beautiful. No matter how you wash this pillowcase, your pillowcase is going to remain the same, always intact. Okay, no fraying threads and all that. So we're going to turn it inside out. This is the inside, really. This is the inside. This is the inside seam. So we're going to turn it out, and you will see how the outside looks also. Okay, once you iron it out, it's going to look beautiful. It's really going to look beautiful. Another thing is, while sewing, make sure the side seams, you can see my side seams, you see how they aligned. Please use clips to hold that place, okay, or pins, so that while sewing they will align. if they don't align, I mean, it just makes your project look awkward. Okay, so inside looking fabulous, looking very neat, looking very beautiful. Okay, when you wash it to, you know, spread it in a line, or you know, you pack your stuff in your laundry bag, it will just look good. Okay, it will just look beautiful. So there it is, looking perfect. All right, so I'm going to sew the other one. Remember, I'm sewing the pillowcases two ways. Okay, the plain and pattern. That is what I'm doing. So I'm going to sew the yellow one now, following the same process, and you can see what I did. I used the pattern for the opening of the pillowcase. Okay, so this particular type is going to be 2, and then the other one with the writing on it is going to be 2. Okay, so this set has 4 pillowcases. You can see how beautiful this turned out. Okay, this looks perfect. I hope you now know how to sew your pillowcase with burrito technique. This looks good. So all it needs is just ironing. So we're going to set this aside now and get ready to sew our bed sheet. Okay, so I'll have all the materials ready now. Here I have my bed sheet. Okay, and I'm going to add an extra fabric towards the foot of the mattress. Okay, of course you have to measure your mattress, the length and the width. So because of the pattern, I had to cut an extra fabric to join. Okay, and I made sure that I followed the pattern so that by the time I stitch it together, it's not going to look different. Okay, and I'm going to be using 1/4 inch seam allowance to do this. Now after sewing it, I will trim off the excess to make it look very smooth, you know, and very neat. Also, I'm going to make my stitches very small because I want it to be as invisible as possible. Okay, now, you know, when you get your fabric, you know, if you get a fabric bolt or something, the width can be different. So it depends on the kind of fabric bolt that you got, and also the pattern of your fabric. Okay, so I had to make sure that I joined it where it will favor me, like it's going to look okay. Okay, I followed the pattern, checked it out, and made sure that, you know, where I'm sewing it is going to look awesome. It's going to flow very well, and anybody looking at it will not notice, you know, that it was joined and something like that. So now that I'm done sewing it down, I'm going to trim it off and it will look really good. And after doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to sew around the edges. Now you can actually add elastic, you know, and make it a fitted bed sheet, but most times I like my beddings to just be flat sheets, because it means even if I'm giving it as a gift, the person can use it on any kind of mattress. Okay, provided it's within that size. Even smaller mattresses can use it. Okay, same goes for when I want to sell. Okay, I really prefer flat sheets. Okay, but if I want to use personally, or somebody wants me to custom make one, I can do the whole adding of elastic and making a fitted bed sheet. So right now you can see the pattern aligned very well. You can see where I joined it, but you can't really, you know, see any obvious change. You see the patterns aligned very well. Okay, I had to join it under the black design. Okay, so whenever you're doing this, you need to look at the fabric very well and know how and where you can do this. You can see my patterns. You can see it flowed. Okay, this is very important. Okay, you have to look at your fabric and see how and where you can cut and join them. Okay, so now what we're going to do is sew around it, and I'm going to be using 1 inch. Okay, 1/2 inch first fold and 1/2 inch second fold. All right, 1 inch, that is 1/2 inch first fold and 1/2 inch second fold, and I'm going to be sewing at the edge of my fold. Now this is where your compensating foot can work for you. Okay, that is edge sewing foot, because you need to sew at the edge to make it look clean. Some people sew down the middle, but I don't really like it. It doesn't look clean to me. So, but I'm actually using my normal sewing machine foot, and I know I'm eyeballing it, and I think I'm doing a great job. Okay, so make sure that it looks clean like this. You can see I sewed down the edge, and of course you're going to use the normal technique I told you earlier. Make sure that your needle is down in the fabric, raise your presser foot, turn and continue sewing. Okay, and you just get a neat edge. You iron it out and it's good to go. Okay, so there we have it. Okay, we have our set ready: 4 pillowcases, 1 bed sheet, and our comforter. Yay! I know you can do this right now. So this has 2, okay, in this set. This particular one is also 2 in this set, and when you insert a pillow inside it, it's not going to look like this. It's going to be placed on the bed like this. Okay, and here is the bed sheet. You can see the design is directional, just the way the pillowcase is, and also the comforter will look like this also. And here is our reversible comforter, looking beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, share your thoughts at the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Until later, lovelies. Ciao.